How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? It's LorOnline here again today with another video, and today we are going to be talking about the Cartel Market in general. So that means going over the in-game shop system they have currently, the collection system, and a few problems that they're currently having with the Cartel Market. So, sit back and prepare yourself for some serious Star Wars content. Alright guys, so how's it going? Today we are going to be talking about the Cartel Market in general. For those of you who don't know what the Cartel Market is, it is an in-game shop system established in Star Wars: The Old Republic back in 2013 to try and bring in some more income on top of the already existing subscription fee. In comparison to other MMOs, I think it's fair to say that Star Wars: The Old Republic's in-game shop system is the most controversial. Not only has it become EA's highest priority, but has also become the biggest issue in the game to date. Unfortunately, they also have an in-game gambling system, which I think is completely unethical for a game that is supposed to be T-rated. Of course, you have 13-year-olds running around in this game, unaware of the gambling addictive properties of something on the Cartel Market, and I think that is so immoral of EA, and I actually despise the company purely for implementing this system in the first place. Now, I know that's a very bold statement that I've just made, and I feel that it needs to be discussed in depth to some extent, because it is very important to me, and I know a lot of players in the game have been tricked out by the Cartel Market, of course, by buying packs thinking that they were going to definitely get some of these items, only to find that they didn't get any of them whatsoever, which can be disappointing at first, but if you're not aware of the full in-depth properties of the Cartel Market, it can catch people off guard. Now, very quickly, before you guys say I'm hitting on EA a little bit too hard with this one, I do understand that they dropped the subscription fee to justify the Cartel Market. Now, I don't think that was actual justification at all. I think the subscription fee removal, in fact, hindered the game further, in the sense that free-to-play players are already limited to such little content that they're going to basically have to go and resubscribe anyway, so they can have access to all the features that allow you to play the game's content that was already out. So you have to be a subscriber, by the way, to justify to run, you have to be a subscriber to do daily content, you have to be a subscriber to do more than 3 PvP war zones, you have to be a subscriber to engage in any form of operation or flashpoint, you have to be a subscriber to do more than 60% of the content in the game, which I think is ludicrous. My point, of course, being that the free-to-play model that the game currently has is more or less pointless, and they don't even need to have it really, because the £8 a month that you're spending on your subscription ends up going into the Cartel packs. So people who have these free-to-play accounts tend to buy a Cartel pack rather than subscribe in hope of getting something promising. What ends up happening is you get an item that you're disappointed with, and you don't have your subscription either, so you're stuck. That's my opinion of the Cartel Market anyway, and I'd really appreciate if EA/BioWare would be willing to change this. I don't know what you guys think, but feel free to comment in the comment section down below with your opinions. I'm sure a lot of you will disagree with the points I just made. I'm sure some of you will agree. Would really like to hear what you guys are thinking. On top of all that as well, I'd actually like to see perhaps EA put in a new form of method to getting Cartel coins rather than these achievements that give you like 20 Cartel coins each. I'd like them to maybe make it a drop from an ops boss or something along those lines. So you could maybe do Ravengers and then kill the last boss, and then you get 200 Cartel coins, or you get like 20 from each uprising you do. Something like that. So it's much more plausible to get Cartel coins in-game, so people don't have to depend on spending money. But that's enough of the introduction. Let's jump straight into the video here and get into this discussion. Now, the in-game shop is the thing I'm going to be talking about first. Of course, I've just gone over the Cartel Market in the introduction, but the in-game shop actually functions as a platform for people to buy packs, to buy specific decorations, specific armor sets, or misc items such as companions, or of course you can actually now buy some races and things like that. So don't get me wrong, there is a lot of content on the Cartel Market, but whether or not it's worth the amount that it costs is a completely different story. Which leads us into our very first point, which is the quality of products on the Cartel Market. Now, more recently you may have noticed that the Cartel Market has been depreciating in quality. Now, they're trying to justify that by saying they're not making enough income from the current existing subscriber base, but what's actually happening is their quality control is shoddy. They are just not putting enough work into checking the Cartel Market items in comparison to the time it's taking them to bring out the product. As a result of this, we are seeing shoddy workmanship. Items that look plasticky are rushed. You can tell that they're quite clearly not putting as much time as they were putting in back in the old days of the original Cartel packs, the Contraband packs, the Bounty packs, the Starfighter packs. Basically, the older packs, we're seeing a much more rushed finish rather than this perfectionist's sort of ideal they had before. Now, from here, this is completely a matter of opinion. Some of you might be sitting there saying, I really want high quality items. I don't care if there are necessarily as many of them, but I want some real high quality stuff out of the Cartel packs. And then there are some of you sitting there saying, no, I want variety. I want as much option as possible. I don't care if it's good necessarily. I just want a lot of content, and that is of course dependent on what sort of person you are. So there's a little bit of a balance to be made there. They need to get out a lot of content really fast to please the people that really want that content as soon as possible, but they also need to try and have a little bit of quality control to justify the content for people who perhaps want to see better quality items over a large amount of items. So that is completely up to you guys. I'm basically very eager to hear what you guys have to say about that. I'm not sure if it's necessarily just my opinion, but as a personal preference, I prefer quality over quantity. But that is completely up to you. I'd like to hear what you guys think in the comment section below about that topic. That's enough of that for now. Let's move on to our next topic. This is another issue in the game currently with the cartel market. I'm sure a lot more of you will agree because it has been an issue for quite some time. And that is, of course, retextures. Right, now retextures are of course a very controversial topic as well. I'm sure a lot of you are sitting there saying, retextures don't bother me, while some of you are saying, oh, I hate retextures, it's dumb, it's ruined the game. Well, honestly, I feel with the cartel market, because it's a money perspective, it's dependent on people's actual finances, I don't think they can justify retextures in general. To give you an example of why I actually think it's completely ludicrous they're even trying to do this, is if I came over to you and said, hey, I've got an iPhone 5, would you like to buy it for full price? Yes, and then a week later I come along with a new pack and say, hey, I've got an iPhone 6, it's the exact same as the iPhone 5, but it's in the red colour you wanted. Want to buy this one for full price too? As you can see, you can't really justify that. That's not very fair of a company to come along and make you pay full price for an item that you just bought just because now they're offering it in the color you like. I think that sort of retexture is completely unethical. Again, it is something EA is trying to push, and again, it is something I completely don't agree with. Now, that is not the only instance as well. Color is not the only determining factor of a retexture. Sometimes they use the same looking gear. It's very similar in appearance, but they add straps, and you originally wanted it in straps, so you go and get it in straps. It's that sort of thing. It requires no effort their end. They just do it because they don't want to give you the option of customization for a free price. I actually prefer the system in World of Warcraft for weapons, to give you an example of a system I prefer, where you can sort of change the variation of your weapon now. With Legion, they've made it so you can get a sword, you can change the hilt of the sword, you can change the blade, you can change the anesthetic features of the sword, and improve it. They should do that with armor sets, or weapons at least, in Star Wars The Old Republic, where you can customize stuff for free, rather than having this situation where people come along and they're having to sort of save up money and income to buy items that they want purely out of their own pocket. I'd much prefer people could buy an item once maybe, perhaps for a significantly increased price, and then have the option of variation, because then they're not stuck with an item that they're just going to bring out next week in the preferred visuals you'd rather have it as, if that makes sense. So that is why I feel retextures are unjustified, purely because there is a much simpler way around it. EA are just doing it to pinch that little bit of extra money out of our pockets. And very quickly before I move on, I've just been over to SWTOR Central channel and he's done a rant very specifically on this topic. Quite clearly the new pack has triggered many people, so feel free to go over to his channel in the description down below and take a look at his rant there. So moving on to our very last point today, this is a trigger point for me because I really am kind of pissed off with this. I think I have the right to use that phrase here, but Star Wars The Old Republic, BioWare and EA are both considering this game to be a premium title, which brings us to our final issue, which is cost. Right, so this is the very last topic I'm going to discuss for the in-game store, then we're going to go over to collections and then a few other niche problems, but for now, I just want to focus in on the current cost of the game. Okay, so to quote EA, they actually said that this game is a premium product, and that basically means that they have the right to charge a higher fee in comparison to most other games. Now, we're going to start off with the one-time purchase. I'm going to do this in dollars because I presume most of you are American, and this game, for 60 days of subscription time, non-reoccurring, is $30. Now, do you think that's fair? Not really, considering they don't bring out that much content on a monthly timescale. And that's why I'm kinda skeptical. I don't really agree with this plan at all. I don't like how they're charging this amount for a subscription fee, because they quite clearly do not bring out enough content monthly to justify that sort of price. On top of that, you could argue, in fact you could argue that they bring out the cartel packs each month. But that's a completely separate purchase, isn't it? I mean, if you're going to come and say, hey, we're bringing out cartel packs every month, so you should subscribe, but you're going to have to also pay for those cartel packs. And if you want to actually engage in any premium content whatsoever, you have to subscribe. So you're stuck in this situation where you've got to subscribe, you want the cool cosmetics, you've got to buy those cartel packs. And the cartel packs aren't cheap. If you want one cartel pack or 450 cartel coins worth of a cartel pack, that's going to cost you $5. If you want more than one cartel pack, maybe 5, 6, that's going to cost you $10. You want a few more than that, maybe 20, you're going to have to go somewhere around 2,400 cartel coins, that is $20. And if you want the hyper crates, you're going to have to fork over like 5,000 cartel coins, which is $40. So you're having these ridiculous price ranges for retextured content, poor quality content, and they're somehow trying to justify it as a premium game with all these expenses. But to think about it, if you put it in perspective, what do? We get one sort of big update each year, and that could be the Shadow of Revan, for example, where we actually got Operation content. But no, not even that. We had Knights of the Fallen Empire, Knights of the Eternal Throne. Sure, great narrative arc, cool story content, but what did they sacrifice? All 8 campaigns, all gone. No Operation content, no Uprising content, no Flashpoint content. I mean, sure, you could argue that there were a few Uprisings more recently, but over the last couple of years, there hasn't been any content even on that scale. So we're not getting the content we are actually investing in. We are paying for imaginary concept content that is going to happen one day, but it's not going to be today. And we're going to be saying that for a couple of years' time before eventually EA says, oh, well, didn't work out. So you have to sort of put into perspective there, what are we paying for? Are we paying for an MMO, or are we paying for a perhaps shoddy game with poor quality content? That is what you sort of got to balance out. Is it worth the 120 plus quid you're paying out for all these various expenses? That's my rant segment over. Is this game really worth the amount they're pushing forward? I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comment sections. I'm sure a lot of you will disagree with me, saying, no, they're bringing out this, this, and this. But I don't see it. Honestly, from my perspective, I don't see what they're bringing out so obsessively. You could argue, have you still got stuff to do in the game? And I'd say, yes, I have. But it's content that I already dismissed because I didn't want to do it. Or it's content that I have done and deemed it unnecessary to redo. So that could be something like the night campaign. I did it all the way through on light side, for example, and you could say, hey, you could do it on dark side. Well, I don't want to do it because I didn't really want to do the light side version, didn't like it. I doubt I'd like the dark side version as well. Of course, you could argue, don't know till you try, but that's something for the comment section. So feel free to head down there to the comment section, and I will happily have a long discussion about this with you, and we can discuss either the extreme negatives or the extreme positives. Just like to know what you guys think as a community. And there we have it, guys, the in-game shop, the Cartel Market. I feel we've definitely discussed the poor quality issue, the retextures, and the cost overall, and the value of the game, which brings us to the second main topic of this video, and that is the collections. For those of you who don't know what the collections function is, it is actually an option in the game attached to the Cartel Market where people can get armor sets from packs, from the GTN, obtain all the pieces, then unlock the armor set, then have that armor set go to your legacy by paying an increased sum. This also applies to mounts, weapons, various gears, pets, toys, and all things like that. Now, the way that the collections actually functions is the biggest issue it has right now. A lot of people will agree with me when I say that the collections is just another means of EA to make money, which it definitely is, as is most of the aspects of this game right now, and most of the aspects of the Cartel Market. Now, I want to quickly just go over the subtopic of functionality here with collections and discuss why the functionality is bad, because a lot of people don't actually know why people don't like the collections, and it is because EA is putting an extra tax on armor sets you've already unlocked. Now, if you've unlocked a set and you want to have it on a different character, you can't just send it to that character because gear is bound to a specific individual's character. So you can't have one character run around with an armor set you've got on another character unless you unlock it through your collections and then pay an additional cartel credit to have that sort of like as a tax to have that gear unlocked on another character. Now, for those of you who don't actually play MMOs, you probably are a little bit confused by this system. It is a very complicated system for people who aren't very familiar with how an MMO functions, but the way it actually sort of works is you have your legacy, and then your characters should be able to transfer gears over between other characters through the legacy, and that is how the basic idea works. It's basically expected in MMOs these days for the MMO to allow the feature of armor transfers between characters, whether it's through your own personal bank, if it's through a legacy vault or something along those lines. It's just something you expect to be able to do, even if it's just through a mail system. But unfortunately, EA, being the grabby, evil, dictating company that they are, have tried to capitalize on this by having it where bronze items, any bronze item set you want to transfer over is going to cost you 60 cartel coins. If you want to transfer a silver item, it's going to cost you 240 cartel coins. If you want a gold item, it's going to cost you 400 cartel coins. We'll get to cost in a minute, but basically they've capitalized on something that isn't normally capitalized on, which is why I think a fair bit of the fan base is significantly more pissed off than they would normally be. So what is my personal preference of this? And it is bias, I am going to say here, because I do not like the collection system one bit. There is not an aspect to it that I think is actually very useful to the game. It doesn't work in its entirety. You can't do it with decor. I mean, you have decor unlocked to an account, but you can't have an unlimited amount of decor. So you get one item of decor, then you have to wait until you unlock it again, which is a completely separate issue. But you can see what my point is here. The collection system doesn't make sense in its entirety. On top of that as well, it requires an extra fee, which just is unnecessary and pointless, as it is people are paying subscription fees, cartel pack fees, collections fees now. It's like, how much money do you want out of us? Can you just drop it for a second and focus on making a good game rather than seeing how much regular income you can get from this so-called cash cow of a game? But that is just my personal view. I'm sure a lot of you have a lot more to say to that topic, but that is up for you guys in the comment section as always. But that's enough for that for now. Which brings us to our next issue, which is the purpose of the collections tab, and I don't actually think there is one at all. I actually think it's completely pointless. The fact that they have it in the game makes no sense, other than the fact they're trying to capitalize off of it. I mean, if you look at the guild bank we have at the moment, or the legacy bank is a better example, you can just put your armor sets in there and transfer it between characters. Then you have your personal cargo bay, you can keep it on your character, then perhaps send it through the mail system. You don't even need the collection systems, it's just there so you can sort of keep track, and then you could argue, well, it's a good way of keeping track. Then why not have it as achievements? Why not say, oh, you've unlocked the entire Temple Guardian set, have an achieve. You know, it doesn't need a collections tab for them to capitalize on. I don't need a way of going through all the armor sets in the game. There's the GTN which does that, and the preview window which is shoddy enough and is a completely different video, but I really don't think that the collections has a purpose at all. So that's just my opinion of the purpose of collections. I don't know if you guys necessarily agree, but I just don't think there is a point of it. I mean, it's a good way of keeping track of stuff, but as I said, achievements just do that perfectly fine, so no need for this tab at all. It's just there to be a pain in the ass. Right, so moving on, we have the bugs of the collection system. I'm sure a lot of you have noticed that if you preview certain armor sets, they look a bit dodgy. You have the odd armor set that if you have a girl-specific character, it won't share it at all, but it will still pop up. They'll still have the window pop up for some weird reason, attempt to show it to you, which doesn't work. Sometimes when you click on the preview function, you get your character just completely vanish, so you can't even see the item. And if you try and preview decorations or toys, it doesn't work at all. Like half the items you can't even preview. You can only preview armor sets and weapons. Sometimes pets work, sometimes mounts work, but there are always animation bugs, lighting bugs. The preview window as it is too small. It's just the whole preview system involved with collections doesn't work, and I think they just need to improve on it significantly and try and just make it so it works, basically. Or do a system similar to how ESO does it, where if you preview, it will just put it onto your character there and then, and you don't need to worry about it. That won't make sense unless you play Elder Scrolls Online, but you can see my point. I just think they need to improve the bugs that they currently have with the already existing collection system. Which brings us full circle to costs. Now, do you think the collection system is worth it? Do you think it is worth paying that small fee, a fee that they've capitalized on completely unnecessarily, just to have your armor, mounts, so forth transferred between characters? Agreeably, you can have two versions of the armor set, which might be cool. Some people like having the variety there, where you can have a mount for this character and a mount for this character. That's cool, I guess, that's something. And if not that, you can say, well, I want this weapon on this character and this character. So, I mean, there is, of course, some worth there. But do you really think it's worth $5 or £4 just to have the character have an item that you've already got on another character? Is it really worth that amount? That is the question, and I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comment section. And I feel I've covered everything to do with the cartel market. I'm not sure if I've missed anything. I don't think I have. I've put a fair bit of time into this video. I'd like to think everything's been covered. But I'm going to conclude now with our very final topic, which is the big picture. I thought that was pretty bold of a title. By big picture, I'm actually referring to the whole game's direction in general. So this is something that is tied into the cartel market because it's sort of the concluding statement to whether or not this game is just becoming a money thing for EA or if it's becoming something with potential. You know, Star Wars Galaxies, you could argue, was something that was focused more on potential, had DLCs that came out progressively, the huge housing tools, massive customization options, these big grand ideas. Is Star Wars a game like that? Or is it a game that's just a capital point for EA to invest in? It's something along those lines. We need to sort of find the middle ground here, and I'd love to know what you guys think. So to start off with today, we're going to go through the content of the game and the direction of the game in general. Now, this point, don't get me wrong, is very much so tied into the cartel market, but the reason I'm sort of talking about the direction of this game now is because I want to do a huge discussion video about it once they've announced the new operation they're going to be bringing out, and once they've announced the uprising. It's why I haven't given my full opinion of the game yet, because there is a chance that they're going to start bringing out more group content this year. They have said they're focusing more at group content, but I'm not sure if it's necessarily worth the amount of time and effort and months of subscription that we're all going to have to pay to obtain this operational group content. Which brings us to the content topic again. It's basically a matter of, do I think that there is enough content being brought out into the cartel market to justify all the small microtransactions? And honestly, I think yes. It's my first positive point of the video and I left it till the end, but I do think they're bringing out enough content to justify the microtransactions. But I don't like how they're doing it, and I don't like that the focus is on it. I do think that there is enough variation in content, that there is enough variety, but I don't like how it's the focus, if that makes sense. I don't like how that's all they're doing. They're not bringing out operation content as much. Flashpoints, there aren't any of those anymore. There is not enough group content in general, and that is the disappointing truth of this game. And that's it for content. I feel that there is enough content coming out into the cartel market, but I don't think there is enough content in the group aspect. There are not enough operations, flashpoints, PvP, war zones. There is not enough general content, but there is enough content for the cartel market. So there you go. There is a positive point in this video. Right, so moving on from content in general, let's talk about the big picture again and focus more on the fact that this game is EA's cash cow. So basically, I'm going to be moving into the business aspect of the game at the moment, basically stuff that the shareholders have been discussing, the stuff that EA's been saying to its shareholders, things like that. So it's sort of the focus of the business model behind the game. For those of you who, of course, don't want to watch this, that's fine. You don't have to. You can head off to the channel and go watch something else. I don't mind too much. But for those of you who are really into the behind the scenes of the Star Wars: The Old Republic and perhaps somewhat concerned, this might be worth looking into as well. But in premise, a cash cow is basically an investment made by a company. It's supposed to be a product that is put into a market purely for the sake of making money. So it's to steadily obtain income or profit from a specific industry. On more technical terms, it is part of the Boston Matrix. It's one of 4 specific fields, and it incorporates basically an industry having a high market share whilst having a low market growth. So the overall concept of this is to have a product milking a market of its money, which is really bad for Star Wars: The Old Republic in the sense that they are not going to try and compete necessarily. They're going to try and sustain their current audience by basically just bringing out slow progressive content. You're not going to see any proper extension plans made here. They are just going to keep to the product life cycle, and when it starts to decline, they're just going to drop it, which is a very high possibility, and that is what's kind of scary for a lot of the current MMO players. Overall, I feel that the fact that they're treating this as a cash cow is depressing in the sense that they have a known brand, they have a pre-existing audience, they have a huge fan base, they have content already, they have potential, they have numerous outlets of income. They could definitely reach for the stars with this if EA was willing to put more money in rather than reinvesting back into the shareholders. There needs to be a focus, a directive here, where EA will go forward and create perhaps the next big thing. Sure, there were the cinematics that came out with Kotet and Knights of the Fallen Empire, which were great, but that was not really the direction of the game. They were just doing that as a publicity stunt. They need to go back into the game. They need to bring out huge new zones and more planets. They need to make this a hotspot in the gaming community, and because it's a Star Wars title, they will naturally bring in tons more income. At the moment, when I go to the comment section of the Kotet and Knights of the Fallen Empire trailers, I just see all this negativity towards the MMO, where people are saying the cinematics are so good, why can't the MMO be this good? And that's exactly my point. They don't need to make a new MMO, they just need to expand on this existing MMO and make it more of a star than a cash cow. Because this is a big market. They have the potential to leech from World of Warcraft, Elder Scrolls Online. They can compete with WildStar. That game is beginning to go on the decline now. They have so much potential here, but they are not optimizing it because they are so busy trying to leech the existing audience and keep this game as a reliable source of income. They are not taking risks, and EA needs to take risks if they want to sustain this game's existence. So there we have it, guys. That is my discussion video for today. I hope you guys have enjoyed this little talk about the cartel market. Of course, it is somewhat more of a rant. I don't know if I should officially call it a rant, but I don't think it is really officially. I mean, it's more of a discussion, isn't it? I had a few positives in there. But ultimately, I just want to know what you guys think. I want to know if you think that the cartel market is a bad idea, if you guys think the collections is a bad idea, if you think that this is a bigger picture issue and they need to sort of focus more on the business plan and see if they can fix up their finances and then see what they can do with the game in the forms of an extension plan. Something along those lines rather than continuously taking risks and trying to leech as much of the existing audience. That's what I'd like to know, and I'd like to see what you guys have to say about that. So thank you all for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I will see you all next time. Bye, guys.